Imagine this for a moment. You're not under arrest. You haven't done anything wrong. A police officer walks up to you and says, "Hey, can I ask you a few questions?" Most people think this is harmless. Most people think being polite and cooperative will make everything easier. But what if I told you that this exact moment is where people accidentally destroy their own legal protection every single day? And what if I told you that lawyers across the country quietly agree on just 4 words that can completely change how that interaction goes? Not aggressive words, not disrespectful words, calm, legal words. Words that don't escalate anything, but protect you instantly. Today, we're breaking down what those words are, why they matter, and why most Americans are never taught this until it's too late. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll understand something that could genuinely protect your freedom. Why this matters more than you think. Let's be honest for a second. Most of us grew up being told the same thing. If you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear. Be polite, be respectful, answer the questions, and you'll be on your way. That sounds reasonable, and it sounds fair, but the legal system does not work on vibes, fairness, or intentions. It works on statements, reports, and evidence. And here's the uncomfortable truth. The justice system is not designed to protect you from yourself. In fact, it often relies on people talking themselves into trouble. Every defense attorney will tell you the same thing. Some of the worst cases they handle begin with someone who was never arrested, never detained, and never suspected until they started talking. The biggest myth about talking to police. There's a massive misunderstanding in America about police interactions. People think the moment you're innocent, cooperation can only help you. But legally speaking, police are allowed to lie to you. They're allowed to imply things. They're allowed to ask questions that sound casual, but are designed to lock you into a timeline or a statement. And once words leave your mouth, you do not get to take them back. What most people don't realize is that police reports are written after the interaction, not during it. That means your exact words may be summarized, interpreted, or framed in a way you never intended. And that report becomes evidence. This is why lawyers don't guess. They don't rely on probably fine. They rely on rights. Why lawyers don't talk, and why you shouldn't either. Here's something most people find shocking. Lawyers don't talk to police without representation, not because they're guilty, but because they understand how the system actually works. They know that silence is not suspicious. Silence is protected. Silence cannot be misquoted. Silence cannot be misunderstood. The Fifth Amendment exists for a reason. And yet, Americans are socially conditioned to feel rude, guilty, or nervous for using it. We've been trained to believe silence equals wrongdoing. That's simply false. In reality, silence is often the smartest legal move you can make. The 4 words lawyers agree on. Now let's get to the core of this video. These are the 4 words lawyers across the country consistently recommend when police begin questioning you and you are not legally required to speak. Those 4 words are, I choose not to answer. That's it. No attitude, no explanation, no sarcasm, just calm, clear, and firm. Notice what those words do. They don't challenge authority. They don't escalate the situation. They don't accuse the officer of wrongdoing. They simply assert a right. And that matters more than people realize. Why these words work. I choose not to answer is powerful because it is unambiguous. Courts have ruled that remaining silent must be clearly invoked. Staying quiet without saying anything can sometimes be interpreted as uncertainty. But clearly stating that you are choosing not to answer removes that ambiguity. You are not refusing. You are choosing. You are not being hostile. You are being lawful. This signals to the officer that you understand your rights. In many cases, questioning stops immediately, not because the officer is afraid, but because they know continuing could complicate things legally. What most people say instead, and regret. Instead of using those 4 words, most people ramble. They overshare. They try to explain themselves. They volunteer details they think are harmless. I was just heading home. I only stopped for a second. I didn't think it mattered. Those statements might be innocent, but they create timelines. They create assumptions. And if anything later contradicts them, even slightly, that contradiction can be used against you. Intent does not protect you. Precision does. Politeness versus protection. Here's an important clarification. This is not about being rude. You should always be calm, respectful, and non-confrontational. Tone matters. Body language matters. But politeness does not require self-incrimination. You can say sir or officer and still protect yourself. You can be calm and still remain silent. These things are not opposites. Lawyers understand that respect and silence can coexist. When talking can actually hurt you. One of the most misunderstood things about police questioning is this: even truthful statements can hurt you. Memory is imperfect. Stress affects recall. You may misremember times, distances, or sequences. If your memory doesn't perfectly align with physical evidence or someone else's account, it can look like dishonesty, even when it isn't. That's why lawyers don't rely on memory in the moment. They rely on preparation. What happens after you say the 4 words? This is where people get nervous. They ask, won't that make me look guilty? Legally, no. Exercising your rights cannot be used as evidence of guilt. And in practice, many officers simply move on. Sometimes they'll ask again. You calmly repeat yourself. I choose not to answer. You don't argue. You don't elaborate. You don't justify. Calm repetition is key. What if they push back? Occasionally, an officer may try to make you feel uncomfortable. They might say, why not? Or if you've done nothing wrong, this will be quick. This is a psychological tactic, not a legal requirement. You are not obligated to explain your rights. You are only obligated to follow lawful orders, not to answer questions. Silence is not obstruction. The difference between detained and free to go. Here's another critical detail most people don't understand. There's a difference between being detained and being free to leave. You are allowed to ask, calmly, am I being detained or am I free to go? This is not confrontational. It's clarifying. If you're free to go, leave calmly. If you're detained, you still have the right to remain silent. Understanding this distinction alone can prevent hours of unnecessary trouble. Why this isn't taught in school? So why don't we teach this? Why isn't this common knowledge? Because the system benefits from people talking. Simple as that. Silence slows investigations. Silence protects individuals. And silence shifts power back to the citizen. That doesn't mean police are evil. It means the system has incentives, and you need to understand them. Real cases, real consequences. Defense attorneys regularly talk about cases where nothing would have happened if the person had simply stayed silent. No arrest, no charges, no record, just a conversation that went too far. Words are permanent. Silence is safe. This is about rights, not fear. This video is not about hating police. It's not about paranoia. It's about understanding your rights the same way you understand seatbelts or insurance. You hope you never need them, but you're glad they're there. Knowing when not to speak is just as important as knowing when to speak. Let me leave you with this. The Constitution doesn't protect people who panic. It protects people who assert their rights. The difference between freedom and trouble is often not guilt or innocence. It's knowledge. Those 4 words are simple: calm, legal, and powerful. I choose not to answer. Remember them, because the moment you need them is not the moment you'll have time to think. If this video helped you, share it with someone you care about. Most people learn this too late. Let's change that. Stay informed, stay calm, and protect your rights.